early. We're a bit late, so we better start straight away. So when I introduce you, I just ask you to press the button in the middle there to speak as well, and you just remember to turn your mic off when you stop speaking. Okay, so yeah, thank you. Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Norwich City Council Licensing Subcommittee. It's Wednesday 7th of December 2022. My name's Ian Stuteley, I'm the chair today, and with me I have Councillor Caroline Ackroyd on my far right, Councillor Claire Kidman to my right, Sarah Moss, who's our legal advisor from MP Law. We have Leonie and Joe, committee officers, and Maxine Fuller from the licensing department. And again, I'll introduce you momentarily. First of all, some formalities. We have apologies, and I understand there are none, and declarations of interest, and again, there are none. So we move on to application for grant of a premises licence for the Yard Coffee Limited, 1A Pivotal House, Orford Yard, Red Lion Street in Norwich. Okay, and Maxine, if you'd like to introduce the report, please.
Members are asked in accordance with the delegation of licensing functions contained in the Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy, Licensing Act 2003, to consider the application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of the Yard Coffee Limited, 1A Pivotal House, Orford Yard, Red Lion Street, Norwich, NR1 3TB, following the receipt of relevant representation. It is recommended that members determine the application to grant the premises licence in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and subsequent regulations, guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy. The applicant is the Yard Coffee Limited and the proposed DPS is Tate Pollack. The application seeks to allow the licensable activities, times and opening hours as set out in the application form, which is attached to Appendix A. This also includes the steps proposed to promote the licensing objectives, which is the operating schedule. There was a representation from the police, but the applicant has agreed to their conditions, and a copy of this is attached to Appendix B. There was no other representations from any other responsible authorities, but we did receive one representation from the local resident, and a copy of this is attached to Appendix C. In determining the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, that is to say, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The representations, including supporting information presented by all the parties, the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 National Guidance, and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives: grant the application as asked, modify the conditions of the licence by altering or omitting or adding to them, reject the whole or part of the application, refuse to accept the proposed DPS. The subcommittee is asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must actually be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. The representation received appears to relate to issues that fall under the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. Okay, so we have Mr. Stuart Gibson, agent, and Mr. Tate Pollack, who is the applicant. So welcome to you both. If you'd like to introduce your application, present to the panel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. As said, my name is Stuart Gibson, representing Mr. Pollack, who's to my right. It's an interesting application before you today. There are two premises in Orford Yard that are already licensed. I was heavily involved in both of the applications, one being Go Bifanis, which we came before you I think the beginning of this year, I think it was, and then George's Restaurant, which is owned by the same people, but that didn't come to hearing. It was settled before we got to the hearing stage. So I was involved in both applications being granted in that area. And what we have here, the gentleman to my right, you could say the boss. He's the guy that owns the whole building. And also there is another, as you've heard, another coffee shop in the area of where Goby Fanis is. And the idea here is that Mr. Pollock's premises becomes licensed, and the customers who frequent that premises will use the shared space at the front of the building that Goby Fanis already use. So please don't think this is going to be an addition of people, because there is only so many people you can get in that area. So there's no extra tables and chairs going in, there's no big to cater for the new business. It's a shared space. So for anyone walking past the premise or going to the premises, you'll see no difference. You'll just see people sitting having maybe a drink of coffee, a glass of wine, a rather nice and trendy beer if that's what they're after. But it's not going to be additional people. What he does have, and you'll see in the plan, is I think it's called Studio 2, the area at the back of the premises, which will be exclusive to Mr. Pollock. And that is in fact 50 feet underground when you get to it. So in terms of any potential public nuisance coming from those premises, as in additional people, is negligible, because you are underground and the noise is not going to come out, and it is to the back of the premises. Now, I say it's an interesting application because very rarely can I come before a committee and say this won't happen, that won't happen, because I'm telling you it won't happen. I don't need to tell you this won't happen. You've seen it for yourself. It's been open since February and there has been absolutely no problems whatsoever with Goby Fanis in terms of nuisance, crime or anything. So you have if you like, a guaranteed success that this business is not going to cause a problem in any of them or for any of the licensing objectives going forward. However, we do have obviously an objection, and the gentleman is here to speak on behalf of that. If I could just address some of his points of objection. He's basically saying another business in Orford Yard is going to cause a problem. Well, I think I've just answered that by saying, well, there is only so many seats that can be taken. So once the seats are taken, they are taken. It doesn't matter whether they're Goby Fanis customers or Mr. Pollock's customers. They are customers, and once the seats are full, they are full. They can use his back area, which is exclusive to him, but as I say, no public nuisance would be caused by that. It is 50 feet underground, it's to the back of the premises, and the concern was always that the noise would escape from the very large glass frontage to these premises, which the Studio 2 will not contribute towards that. In the application, there was mention of events being held at these premises. Let me assure the committee and put the committee's mind to rest. Event does not mean 18th parties, 21st parties, any kind of parties whatsoever. No live or recorded music. And that, you see, that would be very difficult because we've got a shared space here, and Goby Fanis has a condition that says no live or recorded music. So it wouldn't work to say, well, this guy's different, so he can, but it's the same space. So there's no live recorded music required. Events are book signings, people coming and giving talks at the premises, that type of thing, should it happen. It's not a party venue, never will be, never has been, and isn't going to be. The hours, also the query on what hours will these events take place? Well, as I'm sure you know, Chair, the events can only take place within the licensable hours. And if they wanted to take anything beyond that, they would have to put in a temporary event notice to extend their hours for anything, should that be the case. But as it stands now, anything that Mr. Pollock would have on the premises, if it was a book signing, it would be done and dusted and everybody gone, indeed, as far as his hours are concerned, at 11 o'clock. That's a point I haven't mentioned. Mr. Pollock has asked for hours that are within what already Goby Fanis has been granted. Goby Fanis has a licence till midnight in the shade space. Mr. Pollock shuts at 11. So we're not even looking to, there's no extension of hours. In fact, he shuts before the existing licence actually shuts. I bring you on to one more point, if I may, and this is a matter for you, Chair, and your committee, and I would ask that you look favourably upon this. I was brought in at the 11th hour, shall we say, to this application to come to the hearing. I wasn't involved in the actual application process, and quite understandably, Mr. Pollock has looked at this and said, well, what do I need to do to make this acceptable, to promote the licensing objectives? And he did put forward the fact that on Friday and Saturday evenings and during events, he would have door supervision on the premises from 7 p.m. till 11 p.m. I think he was being overcautious. I think he was being just trying to please, and I'm sure he can confirm that or deny himself in a minute. But the point being, as you'll know, Chair, there are no premises in Norwich that have door supervision from 7 o'clock in the evening, and this type of premises doesn't lend itself to the need for door supervision. And I would ask that, given that it is neither appropriate nor necessary for these premises to have door supervision, that you may consider overlooking that as a condition to put on the licence. On the contrary opinion, I also take the view that you could say, well, you asked for it, therefore you will have it, and I fully understand that as well. But I would ask that you look at that yourselves when you consider the application, whether or not it is necessary or appropriate to have that condition on the licence. It's going to be costly, and it's not really necessary for the type of business. If the door supervisors were insisted on being there, it stands to common sense they would have to supervise all customers. You wouldn't say, well, which one are you coming to? I'm going to the coffee shop. Oh, well, I have to look after you. I'm going to go Bufanis. Oh, I'm not interested in you. In you go. It'd have to be everybody that they would take care of. But Chair, I would ask that you look sympathetically on that one and say, well, is it really necessary or appropriate to have that as a condition? The point being that the majority of this business is going to take place in the shared space with Go Bufanis, so it makes sense to have conditions that mirror the two. You have to run it the same way. So if a condition is there for Go Bufanis, it would have to obviously apply for the customers that are with Mr. Pollock's premises as well. So all customers at the front of the house will be sat whilst they are drinking, and that is why I'm very confident in saying you can add more bodies to a space that's, once it's full, it's full. So there is nothing really for you to be concerned about. The other question that was raised by the objector, and I hope I'm not stealing his thunder, he queried the fact of windows and doors being closed during events. Well, as Mr. Pollock says in his application, the premises is fully air conditioned, so that can take place. The only time doors would be open would be for access and egress, which is obvious. I don't think that needs stating. Chair, that is the application before you today. As I said, an interesting one, but I believe a fairly simple one. You have an already trading business from I think January, February this year, that is proven that it doesn't cause any concern to the licensing objectives, and by adding what basically to the customer is, I guess, a little bit more choice and an opportunity to go and buy from that guy instead of that guy, but sit in the same space. That is what we're asking for today. It's an application that runs from 12 noon, and it shuts an hour earlier than the current license that's already running, so I see no issues in terms of the licensing objectives for you here, and I would ask that you grant as applied for. The police conditions were fine, they were very standard, and more than happy to agree to them. But I would ask that you grant the application that is before you this morning. I'm happy to take any questions. Mr. Pollock is here also to answer any specific questions on the business himself. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so we'll come to the objector in a moment. There's just a couple of things that we'd like to just clarify before we do that, and then we'll have some questions as well. So it's regarding the area that's to be licensed. The plan that we've received today and recently via email, there's a red line around the whole space. And this presumably is the ground floor. So we'd like to know what is the area. Is that the area that you're asking to be?
The atrium, sorry, Chair. The atrium area is the shared space that I've been talking about this morning. That's where Go Bufanis uses, and that would be the area where, as I say, everyone sat down would be using either business. What you have at the back of the premises, Chair, is Studio 2. That could be the area that would be exclusive to Mr. Pollock's business. But as I said in my submissions, as he's told me, that is actually 50 feet underground when you get to it, the way the land slopes. Is that correct?
Yeah, Timber Hill. It backs onto Timber Hill. So it's half a basement on one side. We have it dry land and it's like fully underground. And then we have they are labelled, but it's been cut off. With these two red lines. So the idea is that these two are going to be like meeting pods for people in the marketing agency or the front to rent out to have a private meeting. So this isn't, well, people could, I guess, take a beer in there or something, but the idea is that the people sat more in a living room type environment, a nice relaxed area back here, more dimly lit, in Studio 2, and possibly kind of some standing around the bar at the back. So yeah.
Okay, so I think you partially answered one of my questions, which was what this area here is going to be. Is that going to be the bar?
Yeah, so at the moment, where it says Studio 1A, that's where we've got our. It's like, I don't know if you've been to the place and had a coffee. Or
That is the coffee.
Yeah, we sell the coffee there
bar,
at the moment, and I think to begin with, just avoid disruption, we'd sell some draft beers, some cans, maybe some bottles similar to Belgian Monk, in that area for now. But the plan is to put some seating here and move this into this corner eventually, and then have alcohol mostly sold from this side with some stools so people can sit at the bar from in the back, more relaxed area, and then keep this as the place where we sell coffee, but also be able to sell beers and maybe coffee-based cocktails and that kind of thing, you know, throughout. But just to sort of, but to begin with, we'll be here, and then at some point we've got to get shop fitters in and plan it all and that kind of thing. But the idea would be that we put sofas and things around here, and then people come to this corner, and then walk around the back and decide where they want to sit. That's the general idea.
Chair, on that point, obviously, when it comes to that point, we'd come before you again with new plans and so forth for consideration.
Yeah, as a starting point, just to get everything moving, we would stick with what we've currently got, and then get all the plans together and know exactly what the layout will be, where the stalls are, where people are going to be sat, and that kind of thing, and then put in for a variation of some sort. But it would just be moving the place where we sell it from right by the entrance and exit to, you have to kind of walk in a little bit, find a seat, and then go to the bar.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you have any questions about this? It looks like you do. It's still slightly confusing.
Just struggling to pin down the licensable area or the extent of the licensable area that you're currently seeking. That's where I'm struggling. We've got Studio B in this area here. Is it a case of, if I just hold it up, so we go along the top here, round here, are we including this bit in the licensable area as well?
So the whole area is a food court. So 1A and 1B share the food court. Studio 2 would just be another place for 1A to serve into, because that's all the yard coffee. So the red area, I mean, you've got some stairs on there. People probably won't sit on the stairs and drink. So we just highlighted the whole of the ground floor, essentially. I'm assuming.
But this area here already has a premises license, is that right?
That is Kobe Furnace.
So they have the license to use the atrium, the whole area that's highlighted in red, and so we just want to use the same. The yard is the name of the food court. The Yard Coffee is the name of the coffee company in Studio 1A. Studio 1A and Studio 1B, which is Gobafana, both share the yard as a food court within Pivotal House.
This bit here?
Yeah, all of that area, and I guess the toilets are shared as well.
Right, so are you looking for, so if you're going to sell from here, where are people going to be consuming? Are they consuming in this area here? So
those are the toilets, so I doubt people will be consuming too much there. And then where Studio 1B is labelled, that's a kind of a kitchen space, like a restaurant-y kitchen space. So the atrium bit, where Studio 1A is, I'll point on here. So this area is where most of the seating is. Can you see that? So from here to here is kind of where we do most of our covers. We've got wooden tables and chairs, and people sit down and have the drinks. There's a kitchen here, and also they serve drinks. They make and prepare the drinks, and they tend to do a table service from George's. So they bring everything over to the tables. And then you've got toilets back here, but just for simplicity, we just highlighted the ground floor in case someone takes their beer to the toilet. Maybe, I don't know. I just figured it would be cover all bases.
Okay, thank you. So from our point of view, we need to have an exact plan of the area that's going to be licensed, so that we know exactly where people are going to be taking their drinks. So this hearing is an opportunity for you to revise that plan if you'd like to draw the exact areas where you wish to have the licensable area. If you wish to carry on with the full outline of the whole of the ground floor, that's fine. We'll consider that. And if you'd like to specify more detail, then we'll consider that. It's entirely up to you. It's your application.
It would be good to have the flexibility because we're constantly evolving and trying to adapt to make it as optimum an establishment as possible. And if we find that one layout of, say, the tables and chairs where people are sat isn't performing as well, then it'd be nice to sort of tweak it a little bit to make sure the flow is better, and kind of constantly try and improve things. So I'll take advice on it.
Chair, I think listening to what's been said so far and putting it into operation, I think the whole of the ground floor would need to be the licensable area for practicality reasons. You're a customer who comes in and goes and buys a drink from this chap and then wanders off into an area that other people are drinking in that are Golby-Fanis customers, if you like, and sit down to drink, and somebody comes along and says, sorry, you can't sit there. You say, what do you mean I can't sit there? He sat there, he sat there. It's going to be very difficult to explain to customers where they can and can't go. And I think we've got shared areas already. I think it would make sense to have the whole licensable area accessible for this gentleman's customers. It'd be very difficult to police it otherwise and say you can only go there, you can't go there, and customers are going to get very, very confused, and probably that would lead to potential problems, arguments and so forth. I think it's probably best if we just license the whole area and shared space between both businesses.
Okay, so that makes it clearer from our point of view. We have the whole area to consider. Sarah, from a legal point of view, the plans to change the layout, would that therefore be necessary?
I'm thinking if you're asking for the whole area to be licensed anyway, so it doesn't really change anything, does it? Because you're not asking for any additional area, unless you're asking for additional areas, you know, additional to what's there. But currently we'll just consider the whole area.
It's not additional areas, it would be additional selling points. So you'd be moving a bar and so forth.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with the whole area being licensed, then obviously we are more than comfortable with that too.
Yeah, I don't see that it would really change anything.
Okay, and regarding Studio 2, is it on one level but just goes into the slope of the hill?
Yeah. So as you walk, there's a doorway at the tip of my finger there.
Yeah.
And as you walk into there, pretty much at this line, you start to be underground, and then at this point, it's just the deepest underground. But there's also thick concrete floor above there, which then my marketing agency is above that, and then there's another floor above that, and so it's just super deep, and yeah. But by the time you go through this door, which can be sealed as well if we need it to be, as in closed, and it's like a fire door. It's really quiet. You can't hear anything from one room to the other if the doors are closed. If we needed to do that for whatever reason.
Okay, thank you.
Say George had an event. Say George was doing something and the client wanted a big booking. We could say it will be quiet, and people can come around the bar and it'll be a bit quiet. Okay,
and what sort of capacity do you envisage for Studio 2? Because we've heard that there won't be additional people in the atrium, but there will of course be more. If you're opening a new area, there will be more customers overall using the facility and therefore leaving at certain times. So, what sort of time? What numbers?
Could you get in Studio 2?
So 24 sat on sofas and chairs in the main area of Studio 2, and then ideally what we'll have, the front coffee bar that goes into the atrium, because it will go across both rooms. We'll just be standing where you go to the bar and get whatever coffee mostly probably, and then on the other side it will probably have about 8 stools around the bar, maybe 6 to 8 stools where people can sit or go and stand and place their order, a bit like more of a traditional pub, but not a pub, but just a place to sit at the bar high up. They've got them at the Ivy around their bar, similar to that. But we'll encourage more people to be sat where possible. We have some standing, I'm sure, but generally sat where possible.
So 30 to 32 seated plus some standing. So how many standing would you envisage as a capacity?
There's a fair amount of extra space around the sofas, so 10, 15 people, I'd say. It's not a huge amount. And probably only on the weekends, I imagine, would be the case. Most of the time, people will be sat down.
So no more than 50 total. It's probably been generous.
Yeah, the front area has a good capacity, but that's already used at the moment to the capacity that it would be at. So.
Okay, thank you. That was my next question. Do you envisage increasing the capacity of the atrium as part of these plans, current or future?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. I think Sarah, if you've got any more questions.
So, Mr. Gibbs, you formally said that everybody would be sat while they were drinking
In the shared area at the front.
in the shared area at the
At
front.
the front, because that's already a condition for Go Befanders, so it
Right,
makes
okay.
perfect sense to have the same condition for the shared area. Again, you'd have trouble trying to enforce one and not the other.
And where would people be standing then?
This is in Studio 2 at the
In
back.
Studio 2 at the back, right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, actually, were you offering a condition in respect to everybody sitting in the shared area
Yes.
here? Yes, you.
Yes, happily have the,
Yeah,
as I say,
the same
mirror the
conditions,
condition that's on
yes.
the existing premises.
Okay. Did you have any wording that you wish to put for that?
I could give you some wording. if you so
Please do.
desire.
And just to clarify for everybody here, this isn't actually agreed. It's simply something that's been put forward for the councillors to decide.
Where are we? The licensee will ensure that customers are seated while consuming alcohol.
Okay, we need to have that specified to the area that you're.
In the atrium area, yes.
Yeah.
And it's in the atrium subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
Glass fronted atrium area. Would we specify that? It's glass fronted, maybe.
Possibly a glass front. Get the words out. Glass fronted atrium area.
Right.
Reference 1A and 1B on the plan.
Yeah,
if you want to specify.
Chair, just wondering if it might be best to specify the area by kind of an outline, like a coloured outline or something, just to be really clear. Because it's this area here, isn't it?
It is, yes.
This. So
Yeah.
from.
We've nicknamed it the backyard. The
Okay.
front.
Did you want to mark on the plan where that area would be?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And while you're doing that, during your address, you suggested that you would like to remove the condition relating to door supervisors, which is the first one under prevention of crime and disorder. So you wish to withdraw that completely from your application?
If you're minded to agree, Chair, yes. I put it before you. It's a matter for yourselves. I fully accept that Mr. Pollock has offered that. It wasn't a police condition, it was something he offered in the application. It's not, in our view now, certainly in my view, it's not necessary or appropriate to have them, but it's a matter for yourselves. I would ask that you do look favourably on that and not insist that it's put on the licence should it be granted. But it is a matter for yourself.
So in that case, are you removing it from your application?
We would like to, yes.
That's not satisfactory, is it?
I didn't want to preempt any questions that you might ask, but I would just be interested in knowing the reasoning behind that.
The reasoning is the type of establishment that we're looking at. You've seen how the current licence has operated now for 11 months. This is no different. It's a similar type of operation, a similar type of clientele. It may offer just a slightly different range to what's already on offer, but it's not suddenly going to become, and I say this with the greatest respect, Wetherspoons Mark II. It's going to be a similar type of clientele, and the point being, is it necessary to uphold the licensing objectives to have such a condition on the licence? They close, as I say, at 11 o'clock, where most late night establishments, I would guess in Norwich, kind of have their door staff in the weekends from some maybe 8 o'clock, but 9, 10 o'clock and onwards into the night, where they're open late into the evening. This is closed at 11 o'clock. I just don't feel it is necessary or appropriate or required to uphold the licensing objectives, and all it's going to do is add additional expenditure to the business that, again, is not necessary.
Should I mention about? Also, I think the type of establishment that George has got, because we share the he rents the courtyard of me to serve him to his customers for the fine dining restaurant that he's got. Also, Go Bafana's clientele and the Yard's clientele. None of them need to be supervised, and it will create an image that we do and possibly attract the wrong type of idea of what the place is. And I think the people that come won't want to be searched or checked or that kind of thing. It's much more of a fine dining, wine bar, relaxed type environment. I think the door supervisors would intimidate people. I put it in because I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to be extra conservative and get it right. I think I may have made a mistake there.
Chair, just on that, it's a kind of place where, I use this example quite a lot, is where perhaps 2 or 3 ladies might like to go and sit down and have a chat for an hour and share a bottle of wine between each other, rather than go and sit in a pub environment where it's a little bit more leery and a little bit more uncomfortable. They go there with it because they feel safe, they feel it's nice surroundings, and they can sit back and relax. It's that type of establishment. Door supervision probably, as Tate says, would give off the wrong idea to people passing. They've got door supervisors, therefore, and rightly or wrongly, you can argue both sides of the coin, but some people will look at that and say it must be rough, because there's door staff stood outside early in the evening as well, which is unusual for, as I say, most establishments.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarity, do you wish to remove that condition from your application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we will hear now from Mr. Backhouse, who's the objector. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here representing the Westergate Tower Residents Association. There's 14 of us in the tower block which overlooks the premises. Before I talk specifically about the application, I'd like to mention that we're really very positive about the building being used in its current manner. And really, to reiterate what's been said earlier, we haven't suffered any serious problems with events or customers from Go Bafana's. We are concerned because we look down the courtyard. The objection that we raised was basically red flagged because of the words door supervision. And we started to get the feeling that things were going to happen in there where you would need door supervision, which, shall we say, shades of Prince of Wales Road were coming into mind, literally on our doorstep. So I've heard the applicant say that they don't need door supervision, they're not requesting it, and I presume that will go hand in hand with not having any of the events that would normally require door supervision. So I've heard about the events that you might be planning, which might be book signing, things like that. It's fine, but shall we say there can be creep, and you've got an application in which says refers to music, so we're just worried whether that could develop. So if there's no door supervision, we would be looking for the licensing committee to ensure that the events that are taking place are not the ones that would require door supervision. Otherwise, we would be saying we would expect door supervision to be put in place.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to respond to that?
Indeed, I would. Thank you, Chair. Could I suggest the following condition is added to the licence? The premises will not be hired out for private hire or corporate events. No live or recorded music except for background music will be played at the premises. That again, in openness, that is a condition lifted from the current licence at Go Bafana, so it makes perfect sense to have both conditions, the conditions on both licences should you grant this one today.
Okay, thank you. Does that give you some reassurance?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Would you mind repeating that for me, please? Pen wasn't quite quick enough.
Yep. Sorry, just
So, there, for example, we've got LGBT group that want to hire a studio too. Like, I think they're mostly hot chocolates. Would I get in the way of that? Because I think it's like they want to pay to like use the space, and we would close it and offer it to them for a second.
it's what ask the question through me.
Sorry, I just before we put that in, I just want to make sure because we've got a booking at the moment for a local LGBT group called I think it's called Out, and we've had a couple of other inquiries as well because it's quite popular among the community to hire Studio 2 out. I think they primarily want to hire it because it's not a pub, and the only safe sort of known places for LGBT tend to be pubs with that kind of typical customer base. So they want to go to somewhere which is a bit different, a bit more relaxed, and they want to hire out for this event, not a big event, but just like I think there's going to be like board games and hot chocolates and things in Studio 2. I'm guessing they could have a beer, but that wouldn't be the thing we'd be trying to offer to them. And I just want to make sure that we're still able to hire that out to them because they might, I don't know whether they're an entity, corporate entity. I don't want to be too specific on that because I think every so often it might be useful to hire that area out and cater to them. Just because it's probably better for the building and the reputation.
Okay, well, I think you could adapt that condition to include or exclude Studio 2 from it if you wish to. Again, it's your
I think that
application.
makes perfect sense because we already have a condition that says the shared area cannot be hired out for one licence, so it makes no sense to say but it can for the other licence. So that area that's already prohibited should remain so, and as you rightly say, Studio 2 could be excluded, and therefore Studio 2 could be hired out for private events.
Okay, thank you.
But the live and recorded music applies across the board. We're not trying to get in through the back door and have raves in the back room type of thing. That's certainly not the intention. So the live and recorded music across the board, but the Studio 2 potentially could be hired out.
Okay, so we will need to just establish what that condition is. Councillor Ackroyd,
No,
please.
it was just thinking about hiring out Studio 2, sorry to interrupt. But would there be a timing on that, or would that fit within the until 11 that you've asked for?
It would have to fit within the licensing hours unless they came back to the licensing authority with a temporary event notice to change that.
Thank you.
So, just to clarify then, so with the exception of Studio 2, the premises will not be hired out for private hire or corporate events, and there will be no regulated, sorry, it was live, sorry, could you repeat that?
Yep, no live or recorded music.
No live or
Then
recorded music.
in brackets, except for background music, will be played at the premises.
Yeah.
As you know, background music has no definition in the Act whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, would you like to?
Just so we weren't selling alcohol in the front area. The lady who founded Not on the High Street came and did like a motivational talk there the other day in a book signing in the front area. It wasn't hired out by hire. It was organised for a time when George's restaurant was shut for Goat Farmer, so the yard guys just organised it. Would that be counted as private hire? I just want to make sure that we're still able to do that kind of thing.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I would say that's okay.
It's just great for the area, it's really good for the building, and I just want to...
Private hire is, I want to hire out your building and here's 300 quid for the privilege and I'm having 200 of my people coming along and we're going to have a party.
Oh yeah, we were involved in organising it, KJ for it and all that kind of thing, so okay. Just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So, Mr. Backhouse, do you have any response to that particular condition? Does that satisfy your concerns?
That's fine on that particular point, yes.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to address the committee on any other issues?
Yes, a couple of points. Because there are going to be more people, customers in the area, in the area designated by the red lines, up to could be another 40 odd people, Studio 2. I'd like to understand how the outside yard is going to be used, because we now have 3 licensed premises, even though 2 of those licensed premises are in the same premises, potentially using that yard. And as I said right at the beginning, the yard is our big concern because it's the open area. There's no sound protection, and it will just, any noise just goes straight up into our residential area.
Okay, thank you. So this is, presumably this is the smoking area, designated smoking area, or a place where people would naturally go out to
Or for
smoke.
yard outside.
Are we talking this area here?
Orford Yard, yeah.
Just outside that area?
What it is, Chair, the only way for people to use that facility is to be sat at seats. You cannot put more people in there that isn't there already. I accept the point that potentially 40 extra people could be on the premises should this be granted to people that are using Studio 2, but please remember Studio 2 shuts at 11 o'clock and therefore these people have to go home. It's not a case of I'll come out of Studio 2 and go and sit outside. If there's no room to sit outside, they can't sit outside. So there can be no additional people sitting outside beyond 11 o'clock, as is now, because that could be open. That is open till midnight anyway. From memory. Yes, sure.
Just to add another point, so Studio 2, except for this area here, which is currently a tool room, this part of Studio 2 is open with sofas. There's a big Chesterfield in there, lots of plants, and some people are already back there and been back there for a while. And so the 24 or so that we've got seating back there has been the case for a while. The only additional people in the building from the point of when we do make this into a bar will be the 8 stools that we've got and potentially 10 standing. But the idea would be that they sort of stay back here, and I won't be encouraging anyone to stand because there'll be George's restaurant having its diners sat on the tables in the courtyard, and I don't want them to get interrupted because that's a revenue stream for me because he pays me through the courtyard.
Okay, thank you. So actually we're talking about probably 20, a maximum of 20 additional customers to your current capacity. Okay, thank you. I think the question from Mr. Backhouse was how you would manage the outside area with some additional people, and in particular perhaps people who are smoking. But bearing in mind, of course, the earlier closing time of this particular place. So, Mr. Backhouse, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I'm still not sure how that's going to be managed. Yorgie's restaurant has tables out there. People can sit out there and drink, albeit with food. People from the area, the premises we're now discussing, can go out there, obviously, because you can't stop them going out there to smoke. But what control, now we don't have any door supervisors, is going to be put on to stop people taking drinks out into that area? And how can, and I think a more broader question is, how can they be differentiated from the customers of Yorgie's? So you're going to have people out there. So who's a Yorgie's customer who can be out there drinking, but who is a Go Befana's customer, or more importantly, a yard customer, who shouldn't be out there drinking?
Okay, thank you. Would you like to respond, please?
Yeah, no problem.
So that courtyard's been a shared space for the Yard Coffee and Go Befana and George's since Go Befana's moved in. Because I'm in charge of that courtyard, keeping it clean and maintaining it. Rather than it just being George's, we've been serving coffees out there, and we would sell our beers and that kind of thing the same way. It's a shared space in the same way that the inside atrium is. And just like George, if someone sat there with their family at a table and chairs, I wouldn't want anyone to be sat next to them or stood next to them smoking, that kind of thing. So the idea would be, if someone is going to go for a cigarette, they'd probably go to the left more by the bins. But I'm encouraging people to be sat down just like we have done up until now. I don't see any change at the front.
Can I come back on that? I mentioned the smoking because that's what people will go out and do. But as I said, I'm representing 14 other people, and we're concerned about people taking drinks out there as well. because even though you said there's not going to be very many more customers, there potentially could be up to 50 extra customers drinking inside, some of which will want to go outside to smoke, some of which, and we've seen it, you've seen it, everybody's seen it in pubs, people take drinks outside with them when they shouldn't, and because there's an area where people can have drinks out there already with an adjacent operation, what's the control? I don't see any control.
Okay, thank you. Can you just turn your mic off? Please, thank you. Okay, so the question there is about the outside space, because this application does not include taking drinks out into that outside space. So it's a case of how you manage that where other people are able to drink outside. So perhaps you can respond to that. So the application that we have here is for the space that's outlined in red, Orford Yard, where there's tables and chairs outside. This application would not allow people to take drinks outside. So how would you manage that?
Okay. Just going back a bit, as you're aware, as you've just said, Chair, Gulby Finance does have the ability to serve alcohol outside, and this is their plan, and it takes in the early part of the yard. The application here, you quite rightly point out, doesn't include that as part of the licensable area, and from memory the application doesn't even ask for off sales, I don't think, so it's not even a case we could say it would be off sales. So I think the condition needs to be inserted on the licence that says no drinks to be removed from the premises at any time.
Okay, thank you.
That would have to be policed by staff within the business. They'd have to be told they can't take their drinks outside.
Okay, so can you describe how that would work in practice? How people would be prevented from taking drinks outside and therefore breaching your licence?
By all means, come into. From my point of view, the only way that could be controlled is by staff of the business informing customers that they cannot take drinks outside that are part of Tate's business. I do accept it could get messy because you've got Gulby Finance people saying yes we can, but no you can't, and there is that point of conflict that we have. Anything you want to add?
Yeah,
all it can be is by staff preventing it happening.
So as a rule of thumb, we can enforce that when we sell alcohol from the Yard Coffee Limited, we would say it has to be drunk inside, and in the same way that George will have to tell people they can't take their drinks and food into Studio 2 when he sells his alcohol, and he currently does that. We would then say when we're selling a beer, you can take it in Studio 2, sit out the front, but you're not allowed to take it outside, and can put a sign up on the bar which says that as well. Be happy to do that.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. The point there is that it already works in reverse with the current licensee, as he's just said. People who buy drinks from Gulby Finance are told they cannot take the drinks into Studio 2 because that's not a licensable area, and they don't. So it could work in reverse in terms. I think the cleanest way to do this is in the not too distant future is to put in for a variation to include that area, so then it's clean. But I fully accept your point that at the moment people from this premises cannot take drinks outside, and that would be the way we'd have to do it. Just like George does with Studio 2, you can't go there. He'd have to say you can't go outside with your drinks. Okay,
so you're offering another condition and to include signage?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I haven't asked councillors if they'd like to put any questions to the applicant yet, so let's have that please first and then we'll come back to you. Anybody?
Yes.
Councillor Ackroyd, thank you.
Just moving slightly away from this, is that okay, Chair?
Yes.
Yeah. So just looking at what you said about protection of children from harm, page 16, I just wanted to clarify about when children are allowed on the premises. Are they allowed all the time? Would you have a time when they should leave? Do you have a policy on that? Thank you.
So George's Restaurant, it's now called George's Task or branded as, it was Go Befana. Because Go Befana, they have diners in who are families, they sometimes Portuguese, Mediterranean families that come in, they don't eat till a bit later on. My suggestion would be that if we are to separate out an area, kind of stand to reason anyway, if there is some standing and that kind of thing, that Studio 2 doesn't allow children after a certain time, but it can be that if you're sat down having a drink in the front atrium area, there's a bit more, they'll all be civilised, but it'll be a bit more dampened and extra civilised at the front. So maybe we have it so that signage and staff are trained to limit. Children must be accompanied by adults at all times. Well, that solves it all, doesn't it? Yeah. If you're
once again, Chair, sorry, there's a condition on the local finance licence that says children must be accompanied by an adult at all times. That would make sense in the shared area. And Tate's point about no children in the Studio 2, I would suggest 9 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean, I don't imagine it ever getting rowdy or dangerous for children. It's going to be, it's like Google Minis playing jazz music in there. There's lots of plants everywhere. There's chests and snakes and ladders in there, and it's child friendly. I imagine I don't imagine many parents would bring their kids there that late, but I can't imagine it being a dangerous place for children. I've got a kid. I've never felt like he's been at risk in it, wandering around the building and stuff. So. But I'd be happy to take ideas and work with them.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, it's your application, so I've heard that you're offering a condition that restricts children from Studio 2
9 PM works.
From 9 o'clock.
9 PM, yeah.
So under 18.
What was your time?
Could I clarify the wording on the condition that you're offering? What are we specifying as children? I know it's an obvious question, but just to be under the age of...
Good point, actually, because the Licensing Act says a child is under 16, doesn't it?
Can we
You're
say
a young
9?
person, 16 to 17, whatever that's meant to mean, and you're an adult to 18, God help us. But that's what you're meant to be.
Well, George's daughter Lexi's 9 and my boy's 9. So can we say 9? Then they can play snakes and ladders in the evening if we're like working.
Can't go as low as that.
Okay, I'm happy to take advice on that.
This is, again, it's your application, so you need to tailor your application.
No children under the age of 16 in the Studio 2 area after, is 9 PM too early? Would 10 PM?
It's your application.
10 PM?
Yeah. Okay. I'm happy with that. My kids are asleep by then anyway.
Okay, so permitted to enter or remain in the studio
In Studio 2,
from 10 p.m.
From 10
in the studio,
p.m.
yeah, Studio 2.
And in the shared area, children be accompanied by an adult at all times.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ackroyd, does that answer your question? Do you have any follow-ups?
No.
Okay, I have one follow-up on that. You specified in a couple of places about strict proof of age policy. Are you using the Challenge 25 or Challenge 21 system? And if so, can you specify, please?
It'll be Challenge 25, simply because 21 doesn't work.
Indeed. Okay, thank you. So again, that will need to be added to the
Are you offering then that as,
Yes.
as a condition? So
I think it's already been asked for in the police conditions that we asked that were agreed.
not specifically to children.
No. They asked for staff training.
I've got a very standard clause here. Did you want to read it out and see whether it would be
Yes,
acceptable?
please. Yeah.
A Challenge 25 policy will operate at all times that the premises is open for a licensed civil activity. Photographic proof of age by means of a card bearing the pass hologram, photographic driving licence or passport must be presented by anyone wishing to buy alcohol whose staff believed to be under the age of 25.
That's fine. Or military ID as well. That's another one they accept
Military
these days for some reason.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kidman?
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of questions. One, we've been talking about the outside area and controlling that area. The atrium, which on the plan is the shared 1A and 1B, is also a shared space, so you'll have customers coming together from different businesses. I'm just trying to get a bit more clarity on how that area is is controlled, if you like, just to make sure that from a public safety and antisocial behaviour point of view, I take on board what you're saying about the type of premises you're running, but I think it just has to be sort of said in the open that in the eventuality, you know, given that there's not going to be a door supervisor, it's possible that you might get a situation. Who's responsible, given that it's a shared area? Thank you.
I'll pass this over to you in a minute, Tate, but from my understanding, speaking to the gentleman over the last few days, the staff at both businesses work together. They help each other out. It's although you might work for Gulbifanis and you might work for this chap, you're actually doing the same things and working alongside each other and cleaning up for each other and so forth. It's as if you all work for the same company. So should that be an issue, I would believe all staff would come together to help solve any potential problem that may arise. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah. Well, yeah, 100%. So we have. So I have two other business partners in the two active at the front of house. Georgia and Shane, or G we call it. They used to run the student union bar, which had huge amounts of footfall, loads and loads, like way more than we'll ever have. And they would have encountered all sorts of different situations. I'm in the building all the time. I used to work in pubs as well. And George is very experienced. He's been doing what he does for a long time. He's in and out of the building. All of his staff are too. The chefs are in the building too. Big guys. Everyone's there to help each other out. Everyone's experienced in dealing with all sorts of different situations. The general vibe will diffuse anything before it even starts, in my opinion, but if some anomalous event were to happen, we would all come together and fix it, let the authorities do our best to diffuse it, and so far that's worked really well when we haven't had anyone really kick off, because it's not an area that's conducive to that happening very regularly. But if it were to, it would be small and we would jump on it straight away as a team.
Okay, thank you for your answer. The other questions, they're both on page 16 under the public safety bit. One is about the notices pertaining to fire safety, the signage really in the shared areas. Is it yourself who is responsible for making sure that they're there and in good condition and generally keeping records in terms of the fire regulations?
Signage? Right. The signage?
Yes. I think it. I was just trying to find that part. There's notices detailing the actions to be taken in the event of fire or other emergency are prominently displayed and maintained in good condition, and I'm assuming that those are in the shared areas as well. So because it's shared, it was just finding some more clarity on whose responsibility it is.
So each business has its own, I think, legal responsibility to take care of their customers, and then myself, as the building owner, I get an audit done as often as I need to for regulations. I think yearly. I think that might be more regular than we need, but we get it done all the time. And as the building's changed, we get a new audit. So every time we do a layout change, and they recommend a different places to put signage, points where people would meet, fire exit signage. We've got lights to illuminate each fire exit, and each space, Studio 2 for example, has a fire exit. So yeah, I stay on top of that because obviously it's super important. That helps.
Okay, thank you.
It's building. Just on a point on that, Chair, and your legal advisor could assist. It's not really necessary for all the fire detail to appear in a licence. It's not meant to try and jump on other acts or other regulations that are already there. It's a Fire Safety Order 2005, is it, that deals with all of that type of thing, and therefore the licence isn't really meant to jump in on that. That should be taken care of by its own regulations, which is already there.
It is fair to say that some of these are statutory requirements on the business and not part of the licensing. So do you wish to remove any of these from your application?
I think all the references towards the fire risk assessments and so forth should be taken out and left under the 2005, I can't remember the whole thing, fire regulations 2005, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Please continue.
Yeah, last question. Again, under public safety, it's just a sort of a tightening up thing. The first sentence has a gap there, and there needs to be a number in there. I'm assuming it says we've conducted suitable, implemented the necessary control measures. We have a capacity of to prevent overcrowding, but there's no number there. So, being pedant, I'd like to see a number there if that's going to be in this document. Thank you.
We'll update that with the numbers that we've talked about.
So would you mind clarifying for me what that number is?
So what we'll probably do, we'll put the numbers in conservatively at what we've spoken about, but that's like with lots of room to move around, lots of space, people sat on sofas. We'll also get a specific, eventually maximum capacity, but that won't be relevant for the license. For the license, we'll specify the 50 odd for the back, including standing, and I need to count exactly how many people we can have sat in the front area, and bear in mind we're going to move and put an extra sofa in, so I'll just have to do a count and add that to the license.
Okay, we'll need to have that today before we determine the license, so I'll give you some time to top that up if you wish to, or you can choose to remove that from your application.
If we remove it, is that easier?
Once again, I would have thought it could be removed because what the capacity you're talking about is a fire capacity, which again, fire safety capacity doesn't need to appear on any premises license. Once again, that's a fire regulation, and fire regulation capacities and license capacities don't always mix and marry the same. It can be, you can determine a fire safety capacity is different to what a licensing capacity would be if you were having one. So my view personally, it could be removed altogether.
Okay, thank you.
Legal advisors nodding.
I'm just saying there's no point in having a condition on an operating schedule unless you've got a maximum occupancy there anyway. So, you know, if it's not information you can provide today, there really is no point in having it on, I would say.
Okay, so that's noted by the committee as removed. Any further questions at the moment? Again, Mr. Backhouse, is there anything else you'd like to add to your objection?
No, I've just got an observation to make as a potential customer. Considering there's 3 different premises with slightly different requirements for each customer, it's almost as though to manage it, you're going to have to give people labels saying, I'm a Go Farmers customer which does this, I'm a Yorgis customer and I can do that, and I'm a Yard customer who can do something else. That's my only comment. I'm happy with the discussions as it's gone on and the outcome, but I'm still confused about how customers are going to be differentiated from going in, going out, whether they're over age or under age. It just seems odd.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's a valid observation. And a further question that I had is that you have a closing time of 11, and yet the restaurant, I believe, closes at 12. Is that correct? Okay, so you're going to stop serving at 10:30 and ask your customers to leave at 11, and yet customers of the restaurant will be able to stay for a further hour. How will that be managed, please?
Two things on that, Chair, thank you. I think the police asked for 15 minutes of drinking up time, so 10:45 would be last orders of a drink, leave by 11. The condition on the Go Profanus licence says alcohol is served with food. So customers couldn't necessarily, if they wanted to then leave his restaurant and join the Go Profanus crowd, they'd have to order food to be able to have a drink. So basically they'd have to leave. And I'm not sure as to, I don't have this in front of me as to what time they stop serving food at Go Profanus, but their terminal hour is 12 o'clock. I think they've got late night refreshment until 11:30, I think. So it's perfectly possible, 10:30, somebody could leave his bar, if you like, Studio 2, and go and sit out in the atrium and say he would like whatever's on offer food and carry on as if he's going to a different establishment. That would be fine. But the condition on the Go Profanis licence is alcohol is served with meals, so they'd have to be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. With that in mind, are you therefore going to close completely Studio 2 at 11 o'clock so that nobody can sit in there?
Has to be.
Okay, that isn't clear in the
I think the
conditions.
terminal, the hours on the premises are 11. It does say 11 o'clock in the closure of the premises in the application, Chair. Yes, it does.
It would be, everyone would cease drinking by 11.
Yeah.
And then, I guess we would usher them out and give them the option, even try and sell them the opportunity to go and get some refreshments from George if they wanted, but otherwise they have to leave.
Yeah, the business is closed to the public at 11 o'clock in the application.
Yes,
So,
so yes, the closing hours are 11 o'clock. What I'm not quite clear on is actually the last time for selling alcohol, because the police said a drinking up time of 15 minutes, but I think in an earlier email you said you were going to cease at 10:30.
I've been very overzealous and extra conservative because I wanted to get everything right, and then I've since been told by multiple people I've gone overboard, and I've put fire regulations and all sorts of things in there maybe I shouldn't have done. I just want everything to be in sync as much as possible and work in tandem with the whole food court and all of the tenants within it. I probably should have reviewed all of his license before I made mine. I didn't have that information to hand, so I just did my best. But generally, I think we'd make it work by just working with George closely and making sure that everyone was in communication with each other.
Thank you. So can you give us a time for last orders, please?
Quarter two.
For the last opportunity to purchase a alcoholic drink.
I note the police saying 10:45. You're basically saying, can you drink that in 15 minutes and be out the door? It's standard to have half hour in this current day and age. Is the 15 minutes going to make a huge difference to you? Probably not. My view would be 10:30. That's me being very honest.
Did you want to take the time to consider it? I'm a bit wary on the spot there.
I mean, we'll see how it works. I'm sure if it works, great. And if there's no issues, then let's go for that. Let's go for 10:30. Everyone finish by 11. And if we need to make any kind of application to tweak that, if we see either more opportunity or within in keeping the same sort of vibe, then we'll make a separate application to do that later.
Just on that. Okay. Just on that, Chair, I think 10:30 works because that allows a staggered leaving. If you're 11:15 and everyone's buying a drink at 11:15, you're going to have however many people on the premises all more or less leaving at the same time, which would bring the gentleman's concern into play. But if you've got half an hour to drink up, some people will leave at 11:20, 11:10. They'll be staggered out over a period of time. It's not a mass people going out at the one time. Giving them longer to drink up is generally seen as the better way to control public nuisance. So I would go with 10:30.
Okay, thank you. So just to recap there, you intend to have the last opportunity for selling alcohol changed to 10:30 on every day. So currently it says 11, but we're going to change that to 10:30 7 days a week. And that at 11 o'clock you will close access to Studio 2 area. You said there's a door on the plan, is that correct? The door is there?
Yeah.
And that will be closed and no access will be given to Studio 2 from that point. And anybody who takes their drinks from there into the atrium will therefore be under that license, and they will need to buy food to continue drinking.
Correct.
Okay. Is that satisfactory in terms of what we've got in the conditions?
Yes, I believe it all ties in.
So that's covered.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from councillors? Mr. Backhouse, do you have anything else to say? Are you satisfied with what you've heard today? So in effect, you've withdrawn your objection.
Yeah, based on what we discussed today, and presumably that's going to be recorded.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say to the panel before we
I think
decide?
I've said enough today, Chair. I don't think I need to sum up. It is what it is. We're asking that you grant with the amended conditions that we've agreed around the table.
Okay, Sarah or Mr. Pollock, if you'd like to.
I just want to say thank you, and also I'm going to swap details with Mr. Backhouse and open a line of communication. If he's got any concerns, we can chat together and solve most things together, because I think we'll get on really well.
Okay, thank you. I assume you're not offering that as a condition, you're just doing that as
Just an informal thank you and an informal thanks to you.
Thank you. Sarah, anything else to
Okay,
clarify?
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, it's just going through the operating schedule really and just kind of clarifying and just tidying up various bits, if you could just please bear with me. So just taking a look at page 16, so we've got for events and during the hours of 7 o'clock, 11 o'clock on Friday, Saturday, outdoor supervisors, that now falls out. The premises and its outside area has CCTV throughout. I imagine because you've agreed to the police stipulation on that one, that you would just simply replace what's there in the police for that one.
Yeah, the CCTV that's in place is controlled by Mr. Pollock anyway, and in the Go-Profanis licence it actually says the CCTV controlled by the landlord, which is this guy, so it's the same CCTV that we cover with.
Okay. Strict proof of age policy, I guess that will kind of fall out because we've added
Charge 25.
for the, yeah, exactly, down below. The strict anti-drugs policy, did you want to clarify for the committee what you meant by that? Is there any particular policy or wording? Or?
Just that if we find it, we hold it and alert the authorities and go through the standard process for it. And that we don't advocate it, and no signage necessarily, because I think that would give the wrong impression.
Yeah, okay. You're happy for that to stand?
Yes, thank you. Yes, and you just reminded me there was a question about that final item in prevention of crime and disorder about the glasses being empty. Were you going to bring that up?
Yes, yeah, that is next on my list, yeah. So we've got all bottles and glasses are to be removed from public areas as soon as contents have been drunk or are empty. That's quite onerous on you because it means you're kind of like leaping on people as soon as they have. How is that going to work? And actually, how will that work when you've got people sharing the space?
Should we say within a suitable amount of time?
Okay.
I think the word promptly has been used
Promptly,
previously.
yeah. There is an attentive staff who go around clearing tables, asking if everyone's okay, that kind of thing. But it might interrupt the relaxed nature of it if we're pouncing on people mid-conversation to take all their glasses away. So we'll tend to use intuition, and it's kind of like a restaurant type environment.
Okay, because just for members of the public, we need to make sure that the conditions are reasonable and also enforceable. And therefore, if you were not to collect a glass promptly under the offered condition, you would be breaching your conditions.
There is a condition on the Go-Profanis licence that deals with this.
Oh, okay.
It says all bottles and glasses will be removed by staff from the communal areas within the licensed area as soon as they are either finished with or empty. It would make sense to have the same.
And put down on the table for 30 seconds. Otherwise it would be... I'll shut up, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So that's what you're offering in place of that?
Makes sense.
Okay,
If
yeah.
one half of the building's got to do it, it makes sense the other half doesn't.
We tend to sync up the way we work together. The teams are heavily integrated. They make coffees and meals for each other and just help each other out with everything. So they kind of work as a team anyway and learn from each other. So that will probably already satisfying a bunch of George's requirements anyway by clearing tables and things in the same way.
Bottles and glasses will not be allowed outside of the premises in the courtyard area. I believe that you already offered a condition with regard to that. Struggling to find it at the moment.
Outside the premise in the courtyard area, yeah. Well, there's no outside drink. They're not allowed to drink outside in the courtyard as it stands. It's not licensed.
That's it, yes.
You can't do that anyway.
Just George's.
Yeah, there's actually something in the police representation there. It says patrons will be discouraged from taking open vessels of alcohol off the premises. What do you understand by that, and how do you put that into place? Because discouraging isn't quite
That's
the same
not
as not
enforceable.
permitting.
You
Indeed.
can't use that because you can't enforce that. Why are they? Well, I told them not to. We discouraged them, but they still did it. It's not an enforceable condition. I think what we've got here, no bottles and glasses to be taken outside in the courtyard area, covers that. It is a defined condition that you can enforce, as opposed to please tell them not to.
Yeah.
Use best endeavours.
So we've got no glasses, excuse me, my voice is going. No glasses will be permitted to be taken outside in the courtyard area. So, yeah, okay.
Unless, so George's.
But that's not your licence, that's a different licence.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the prevention of public nuisance. We've got quite a strict thing that you've offered here. I just want to check that you understand what you're kind of signing up for. We've got noise or vibration from the premises will be maintained at a level that will not be audible at the facade of any neighbouring noise-sensitive premises. What do you mean by neighbouring? And do you understand that actually if there was even the slightest whisper, if you opened a window or something that and somebody heard something, you would actually then be breaching your condition there?
That sounds like I've been overzealous again, possibly. I imagine just to stay the same as it is currently.
To me, it's another one of those conditions you can't enforce because I'm a bit deaf, that's fact. I might not hear something that you might hear, so it's not audible to me, but it is to you. So where do we go with that?
Yeah. Could I suggest perhaps amending it to so any noise that would be a noise nuisance or something along those lines,
Yes.
just to protect the position, but making it enforceable for you as well?
Yeah, there's some flexibility so we can manage it. So if someone's making a racket, I go out there myself and sort them out normally.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to stop them making the racket in the first place. So I'd have to. I wouldn't want to be in breach. I would use best endeavours to reduce it if it was to happen and that kind of thing. But otherwise, we'll stay the same as we are. That makes sense.
If we were to amend it to noise or vibration from the premises will be maintained at a level that will not cause a noise nuisance to any neighbouring noise-sensitive premises. Yeah, you'd be happy with that? Yes.
Sure.
Would you be happy with that, sir? Okay. We've got doors and windows will be kept closed when regulated entertainment is taking place. Obviously, regulated entertainment isn't in here. Are we talking about more the licensable activity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, you've made the point, but I think I'll just pop them there anyway. So, except for access and egress. Okay, so the next one is actually a statement. I wondered if you still wanted to keep that in. The glass of the atrium is extremely thick and soundproof. That's not really an undertaking, it's more a statement.
You can remove that, yeah.
Okay. Premises are air conditioned. Is that something that you're intending to do to keep them air conditioned?
Yeah, we have to because it gets really hot in the summer, so it would be unfair on our customers if we didn't have air conditioning.
Okay. So instead of a statement, it's that the premises will be air conditioned, so that it's kind of going forward, if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is already currently still, and we'll just maintain it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and similarly with the waste collection, the premises will maintain a waste collection contract. Yeah, rather than just a statement. Okay. I believe that's everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So so we've got all the details, and so we'll spend a few minutes now discussing the application and ask you to come back. I think let's take a time. It is 11:45, so let's come back at 12 o'clock, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
So welcome back. Norwich City Licensing Subcommittee, Wednesday 7th of December. We're discussing the application for grant of premises licence for the Yard Coffee Limited in Orford Yard, Norwich. Okay, so the question arose around closing time. So at 11 o'clock there may be people, we understand that Studio 2 will be shut and the door will be closed so no one can access Studio 2. But there may be people sitting in the atrium who have purchased drinks from your establishment, and they will be required to leave at 11, or if they wish to remain, they would need to place a food order with the restaurant. Okay, if people decided to hang around, they hadn't finished their drinks, or they bought extra drinks at 10:30 in order to hang around, we were having a discussion about who would be responsible for those people at 11 o'clock or after 11 o'clock, whether it would be the restaurant who were then required to ask them to leave or place an order, or whether it would be this applicant, so yourself in this case. So just wanting to know how you would manage that, please, how you would ensure that customers either leave at 11 o'clock, or if they wish to remain, to ensure that they make a food order in order to meet the terms of the licence of the restaurant.
I would say it would be down to you and your staff to advise your customers they would have to leave or switch and buy food.
Just like when we're going around tidying up, like we would do at the end of each shift, anyone who's spotted without food, with a drink, partial drink or something, they're trying to finish off, if we've hit the time where they need to have drunk up, then we could just have a word with each of the people doing that, and say, you either have to leave now, or you can order some food. You can't finish your drink now, the time is gone.
Okay, thank you. So are you offering a further condition that requires staff to inform customers of this? And if so, how would you word that, please, to make sure? The concern here is that there's potential for a conflict where a customer may remain, be asked to leave, and claim that they potentially you could claim that you didn't serve those drinks in order to protect your own licence, and then put the onus on the restaurant. I'm not saying that would happen, but potentially it could happen under the licence. So it's essentially to protect both businesses and the licences of both businesses.
Signage. You could have signage that would back up the verbal, the condition that would be hang on top of the head stuff. Take it back to last orders at 10:30. Customer will be advised last orders will be 10:30. The premises will close at 11. All customers, all your customers with the name of your business, will be asked to vacate the premises by 11 p.m. verbally by staff.
Okay.
Can I just ask?
I don't think you need to condition that if they want to stay, they have to buy it. That can be dealt with on the ground.
If someone's got a quarter of a pint left and they've gone to sit out the front, or they're already sat out the front and they've got a quarter of a pint left, they know they can't go get another drink. They're probably not going to sit there and just do nothing. They would be entitled to sit there without a drink for another hour until George is closed, unless George said, like, you're not buying anything, you have to leave. Unless they wanted to go and buy food on its own, or food with alcohol, or food with a soft drink. So to create a nice relaxed environment, I would say it just would naturally happen. Like if I went out the front and had that much left, it would be gone in half an hour, unless I just sat there looking at it for, it would be quite a natural thing to just.
Okay.
I think it's a rare occurrence. I understand what you're saying totally, because you could have this conflict of somebody at 28 minutes past 10 saying 5 pints please, and then just go and sit outside till midnight. I totally understand that that's a potential, and that's what we're working against. But on a normal have a drink at 10:30, they'll be gone by 11 anyway. That will naturally happen. But I think that would be what I just said off the top of my head, which I can't remember now, that there would be last order's 10:30, signage to say you must vacate the premises by 11, and then verbally they'd be told, coming up to 11, like 5 to 11, you need to go now, type of thing.
Staff training.
Or if you want to stay, you need to switch over to.
Happy to train the staff so that they, and they go around and have a word with anyone who's not got food at that time and advise them what they need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Shall I say where we are with wording, just to clarify?
Yes, please.
Customers will be advised verbally by staff at last orders at 10:30 p.m. that the premises will be closing at 11 p.m. and that they must leave the premises at that time.
Or buy food from George's.
Don't have to put that as a condition. That can be done on the ground. You can say, I want to stay. Well, if you'd stay, you have to switch over to them.
I would say that's.
But if
Yeah.
we're
You can't condition that on your license.
But if we're specific about asking them to leave the premises, and we have to say that we're going to ask them to leave the premises, but they don't have to leave the premises because they could switch establishment.
They would not be allowed to continue drinking
Yeah,
after 11
but
o'clock.
they're fine to stay there on their own as long as they're not drinking from our establishment. But then it would be kind of up to George's conditions at that point to manage the rest, wouldn't it? So they're not allowed to drink anything from our establishment after 11, but they're free to remain.
I think technically they would be free to remain, and they would revert to the other licence.
Yeah.
They'd then be a customer of the restaurant.
As a result of
Yeah.
that.
Or loiter.
But their conditions require that people can only drink alcohol with
food.
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
So technically, as far as his licence is concerned, they've left the premises because they've gone to a restaurant.
So they could buy coffee from the restaurant or soft
They
drink.
could, yeah.
Yeah, and my only worry about being too specific is that I don't want to have it part of the condition that I then have to say you have to leave the premises if it's not conducive to George getting the business potentially. I think just want to protect him, make sure he can pay his rent.
So,
From my point of view, I want you to be able to protect your licence. So if somebody with a very large glass of wine hadn't drunk up and then was able to sort of slip, there's my friends over there, go and sit down, it's 10:30, they're still only halfway through that glass of wine, nattering with their friends, you're then in breach of your licence. That's what I'm trying to think of. If you were then inspected and it was found that somebody still had a drink and they were your customer and it was beyond 11 o'clock, I think it needs to be a very clear communication. You mentioned staff training. Your staff have to be absolutely on it that their customer has drunk that drink by 11 o'clock. And then after that, it's I can't see how the licence is breached after that, but that's a very specific cut-off time.
yes, Sarah may have some suitable wording to cover the point that you made about people being able to remain, but not actually to drink alcohol from your premises, from your establishment.
Okay. How about customers will be advised verbally by staff at last orders at 10:30 p.m. that the Yard Coffee Limited premises will be closing at 11 p.m. and that they must have consumed their drinks purchased from the Yard Coffee Limited by this time, or by closing time of 11 p.m. because that makes clear then that that's the cut-off period.
Yes, and then you would be free to upsell to the restaurant. Okay, I think that's established that.
Yeah,
If you're happy with that,
Yeah.
and again, the objector is nodding. Thank you. Okay, so we'll take just a few minutes now, and then we'll ask them to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and welcome back once again. Norwich City Council Licensing Subcommittee, Wednesday 7th of December. We're determining the application for grant of the premises licence for the Yard Coffee Limited in Orford Yard, Red Lion Street, and the unanimous decision of the committee is to grant the licence. We've heard from the objector, and also the concerns raised by the objection have been mitigated by the submissions and conditions offered today. So we thank you all for your time this morning and for coming, particularly the member of the public, the objector, and I think that's it. Sarah has the notification.
I was just going to add to what you said, that it is granted but subject obviously to the conditions, the police conditions, and also the conditions that were offered and the wording proposed by the applicant today.
Yes, so the revised application also includes or takes into account those conditions that were removed during the hearing, and there is the process of appeal, 21 days from notification for any person who's made a submission. Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you. That's, that closes the meeting. Thank you.
So that's moved outdoors now.